Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz. Today is Wednesday, November 24th. It's 4 p.m. here in Hawaii, and has been a little bit of a cloudy day here today. And I'm very pleased to have Dr. Peter Tarlow. Peter is back. He's not in College Station. He will tell you where he is and how the weather is where he is. But we have him back. He went to Israel for a week or so. And we missed you, Peter. Welcome back.
Well, I missed you too. I'm in Washington, D.C. for the Thanksgiving holiday. And that's really, that's a very important holiday in the United States. So I'm really excited about that. The weather here is cold and crisp, and it really reminds you that winter's on its way. And of course, all the merchants are happy because Christmas is coming. And that means that when you have cold weather, people want to shop. So that's probably good for the economy. So beautiful weather, but real cold, about Celsius, maybe 2-3 degrees. In Fahrenheit, maybe 34-35 degrees. So it's definitely winter has arrived in Washington, D.C.
Well, I can tell you here on the other side of the country in Hawaii, it is summer weather after all. So if you get tired of the cold, everyone just get on the plane and come to Hawaii like everyone else.
Right. And if you get tired of beautiful weather in Hawaii, come here to
Washington, D.C.
we promise you won't have warm weather.
And if you really want to save a lot of money right now, you should consider going to Turkey. I understand the Turkish lira collapsed completely today. Yes. And even Apple is closing all their stores, and it's no longer selling products in Turkey.
That's
because
right.
it's so cheap.
And what I do worry about Turkey is the collapse of money often leads to some sort of potential military or violence. And Erdogan, who's not the nicest person in the world at times, I would be afraid that he might want to take people's minds off their economic misery and so start a war someplace. And so I hope that is not true. But, he's been threatening Greece. He's been threatening other countries. And often a bad economy is people seek war in order to, fix a bad economy. So hopefully that won't happen. I'm praying it won't happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it does happen.
Well, ironically, Turkey is part of NATO, and so is Greece. So that would be quite ironic.
It would be, but it's not at all impossible. And Turkey's long wanted to be part of the EU, and the EU has not accepted Turkey. And so there's a lot of resentments in Turkey. And it wouldn't, and there's a lot of tension always between Greece and Turkey. So that's not at all an impossibility that something like that could happen. It would probably be the end of the NATO alliance.
Yeah, it would be. When Turkey, of course, is very much positioned in a region that is a hotspot of the world, with Syria bordering on Syria. And on many other countries, maybe we better not name that.
And also the entranceway to the Ukraine and Russia.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yes, yeah.
And so that's a major problem that could be taking place.
On the other hand, Turkey, especially with Turkish Airlines, it's one of the most connected countries in the world. Turkish Airlines, for those that don't know this, have the widest network and the largest network of any airline in the world. It flies to the most countries, no other airline even getting close. You can go from Istanbul literally anywhere and connect through Istanbul to anywhere. So having a conflict in a country like this would be devastating also for global transportation and so forth.
Well, on top of that, they have the largest airport in the world, if I'm not mistaken, in Istanbul.
Yes. The new airport is the largest airport in the world, yes.
So you have a major airport, a major airline, potentially two NATO countries going to war with each other in the middle of COVID, in the middle of even elections that are going, or not elections, but reconfirmations that are going on in the UNWTO. This could not be a worse time, for the tourism industry to have a conflict. So let's hope it doesn't take place.
Yeah, and talking about the region in Europe, COVID is on the way back. I'm specifically from my former home country, Germany, I hear horrible news. And a lot of this seems to be politically related, because Germany, for example, just went through an election. And every political party wanted to look good when it comes to COVID. So restrictions were lifted, and it was like there is no COVID. And now people are paying a very high price. There are record numbers of COVID. Everyone agrees we need to do something. And the country is on the verge of a major lockdown, and tourism pretty much is canceled.
And there are lockdowns already in Austria, in the Netherlands. I understand Belgium is getting ready for lockdown. Who knows what other countries will end up having lockdowns in Europe, because with the open borders of the EU, it's hard for them to contain it one country to the other. People move fairly rapidly across borders. I met, when I was in Israel, a number of German tourists, and many of them were saying, well, we think we'll just sit here and wait it out till Germany gets its acting, until this COVID situation goes down a little bit. People, the German tourists I met in Israel were all telling me that the situation is really kind of worse than what the media is reporting. And so they were very upset, to say the least, that this is, an ongoing problem, and we're going to have to learn to live with it. We can't just go from crisis to crisis.
And Peter, this is really where the world is heading. On November 8th, the day I flew back from Germany to Las Vegas to attend IMEX, was the first day the United States opened up to allow tourists to come back from many countries, including the European Union. And I can tell you, every seat on the plane was booked, and people were on standby, and every flight to the United States was fully booked. People are hungry to travel, and people want to come back. And this is still open. So it looks like governments around the world understand the danger of COVID, but they're also starting to understand the danger of economic losses.
Yes.
The same restrictions we saw just about a year or two ago are not coming back, and we see where this all goes.
Yeah, it's definitely, the same thing was true going to Israel. Every seat was taken on the plane, and people, and plane after plane was arriving in Israel, totally full. So, and there's a lot of restrictions in Israel. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to get a green pass. So it's not easy to get in, but people were putting up with it just because I think they wanted to travel or they needed to pray. And by the way, I put a prayer in the Western Wall for you too.
That is very nice. Thank you, Peter. And when you really look in Europe right now, another interesting development in travel is there is a EU endorsed, I don't know how they call it, green pass or vaccination pass. And now the EU decided that's the only pass they recognize. That means if you come in from another countries, even though borders may be open, your CDC pass may not mean anything. I have to say personally, I didn't experience this when I went to Germany. Everyone was looking at my pass. It looked different, but everyone was okay with this. But who knows? This is a divided world, and we don't have a united system.
Well, not only is it a divided world, but I think you see that in the upcoming discussions that are taking place at the UNWTO. And that's, I guess, very soon, it will be either to confirm or not confirm the current president as for another 4 years. So that could have a big impact on tourism. And it's very important how the ministers vote.
Yeah, and of course, it's not a secret. My stand and our stand at the World Tourism Network, we have actively promoted decency in the election campaign together with Dr. Taleb Rifai, former Secretary General, and also with the Secretary General who was in charge before Taleb, Francesco Rangiali. And there have been open letters as recently as yesterday in asking for fairness in the election, for a secret vote was finally requested by Costa Rica. So Costa Rica really took a brave step in requesting this, what means there will be a secret ballot. So delegates no longer have to be really worried about that someone else would know how they vote. And I think there's a lot of discussions with, when you look at our article yesterday, we had according to our prediction, of course, these are predictions, we had 7 countries that supported the current Secretary General in his confirmation, but we had 46 countries that we are very certain would vote against him, but there's still 60, some almost 70 countries undecided. He needs only 1/3 of the votes to not be confirmed. And so it is close to this. And the reason I think for everyone to know is why, in my opinion, he should not be confirmed is the widespread irregular behavior in the last 2 or 3 years since he became Secretary General of 2018, actually started before in manipulation of the election process, cutting time frames during the heights of COVID so other candidates couldn't be against him. And it's going on, it's actually going on till today. Today, I understand that the UNWTO will announce in the next few days a gala dinner for delegates, what is hosted by the King of Spain. And I'm sure this was designed to get some kind of a positive feeling or endorsement. But I think Zohrab may have miscalculated it. And we issued a statement, actually it was phrased by you, Peter, so you can tell us a little bit more what...
well, I think the important thing is that we certainly want to support the King of Spain, and he's been very supportive of the tourism industry. But of course, he also wants to show his royal dignity of supporting the tourism industry, but not in any way showing partiality to any particular candidate or any particular person. The King of Spain, like any royalty, has responsibility to represent everyone. And it would be really a tragedy if people thought that this was an endorsement of a particular person, rather than this is an endorsement of the tourism industry and the seeking of the renaissance of the tourism industry, and hopefully what will become a post-COVID world. So I really want to praise the King of Spain, not that he knows me, but maybe he will someday. But I want to praise him for everything he's doing for the tourism industry. But I think we have to be careful not to confuse what he's doing for the tourism industry with in any way reflecting on any one particular person.
Yeah, and Spain, of course, has a very special position, being the host of the UNWTO.
Right, exactly.
The host country, so they have a responsibility. So it's actually a good move that the king himself is hosting this dinner, as long as it's not sending the wrong message. And I don't think it will, but who knows? You know, how words are sometimes getting twisted, and we're watching out for this a little bit and make sure this is all understood. What we think actually is the intention behind it by the crown in Spain.
Yes. Yes. Well, hopefully it'll be. Certainly the World Tourism Network has thanked the King of Spain for providing these types of symbolisms and reminding everyone that how appreciative we are of the fact that he's not partisan. This is nonpartisan. It's not about any individual. This is about the totality of the tourism industry and getting it back on its feet, and for all of us, and helping the world's economy. And that's really what we should be about.
Yeah, and of course, Spain should be neutral. Spain is not a candidate, doesn't have a candidate in these elections. So, and I'm sure this will happen. Now, tell us a little bit more about Israel. How's the situation in Israel? I think you had a very busy 2 weeks. Or
I did, yes. I take delegates there, and I'm very happy to say that things were really booming. The government is functioning much better than anybody would expect. As you know, it's a very wobbly coalition, and economically, there's new construction every place. Lots of money is coming into the country. Tourism is starting to come back. Though people stopped and they would say, it's so much fun to be able to speak English again. We haven't heard English for 2 years. And because there were no foreign tourists. I think next month, Russians will also be allowed to come back into Israel. So right now, they appear to be on the recovery. Now, they're, of course, very much aware that anything can happen any day. And speaking of Turkey, one of the big events that took place was there were two Israeli tourists who took a picture across the Bosphorus, and Erdogan's house appeared in that picture, and they were thrown into jail for 2 weeks, for a week. And they were released. Prime Minister Bennett had to work to get them released. They were not in any way spies. This is like something that you would expect in the old communist regimes. But he, I guess, was looking for diversions, considering that right now Turkey's so cheap. If you don't earn in lira, if you earn in, you know, in shekels or euros or dollars. So they could have a lot of tourists, but the problem with Turkey is people don't know when you'll just get arrested for any bizarre reason. Anyway, Israel's doing really well. It was really a pleasure to be there. Of course, those of you who might know something about Israel, the Middle East, there's lots. The food in the Middle East is wonderful. And today, actually, two really nice things happened towards peace. One was, you may be aware, Juergen, that the largest pact was signed between Israel and Jordan since 1994, where Israel will provide vast quantities of water to Jordan, and Jordan will be providing vast quantities for the very growing Israeli power grid. So Jordan's going to be providing solar power. They have lots of sun in Jordan, but they're very parched land, and Israel is now going to be providing huge amounts of water to Jordan to keep the population going. So that's really a move towards peace. At the same time, there were new agreements that came out today between Israel and Morocco. So again, the Middle East, shockingly enough, is becoming one of the saner parts of the world. And that's something unexpected. So it's good to see that Middle Eastern nations are starting to work together. If they could get their act together, this would really be the wonderful part of the world. They have so much history, so many great beaches, so much wonderful diving and other experiences. And especially the Egyptians and the Jordanians and Israelis are all working together to create great tourism packages. And that's, again, peace is so much better than war. So let's hope that that trend continues.
No, absolutely. And this is definitely an amazing transformation, what's going on in that part of the world, considering that just a few years ago, Israel wasn't even on the map. Some of the airlines in the Middle East, when you look at the...
and it's so much better, you know, this is so important for Jordan. God bless you. It's so much important for Jordan. Jordan desperately needs water. Israel can provide them with all the water they need. It makes it easier for Israel not to build new power grids. Jordan has lots of sunshine and can provide lots of electricity to Israel. So you know what? Everyone comes out. Now I'm doing it. Everybody comes out as a winner. So that's really, maybe that's one of the things we should be thankful for this year. That despite the misery of COVID, nations are starting to work together. On the other hand, we have lots of work to do in Latin America, which is really suffering, especially from a crime wave, as is, as you know, the United States. And that's, again, you know, what happened in the Christmas parade in Wisconsin was a real tragedy, with, I believe, over 40 people now wounded and 6 or 7 people dead by a gentleman who on purpose ran a car into a Christmas parade. So these types of terrorism act all over the world.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily, before we come to conclusion, know that this was in fact a terrorism act.
Well, we do actually now know that, because he had a history of crime, and we now have the films showing that as he was going through the crowd, he was actually aiming at people. Now, it may have been domestic terrorism versus international terrorism, but it certainly was not a car out of control. It's very clear that what he was doing was, unfortunately, his goal was to hurt people.
But do you think this may instead of just calling it terrorism, you think there could be other factors in place, like mental illness, like people under stress?
Not in a, he was unfortunately let out. He was strangling and tried to kill somebody just before this, and the Attorney General let him out for on $1,000 bail, and people in Wisconsin now realize this guy had been in jail numerous times and consistently was let out of jail. And so the mental illness may not be on his part. Maybe it's on the part of officials who just didn't care about what happened to other people.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. But then in all fairness again, I mean, you know, you cannot blame an official and predicting that this guy would go.
Well, yeah, I think you can on some level. And that is if you cut bail so much. I mean, we've seen this now in San Francisco, in New York, in Chicago, in Wisconsin, wherever you have this quote unquote bail reform, crime has gone up radically. So there is a clear connection between bail reform and increase in crime. If not, you're just going to whitewash everything. And that doesn't make any sense. I think we have to start taking responsibility, and our government officials have to take responsibility for poor policy. And this has been poor policy. The same thing, by the way, is taking place in Houston, Texas. But wherever it is, crime goes up.
It is a crazy world. And I think the COVID situation is definitely adding to the stress people have and to
the situation. Right. But people's stress is not to go out and kill people.
No, of course not. But people stress can drive people crazy.
Of course it can. But you also, as you well know, tomorrow is Thanksgiving in the United States. We have had the worst inflation in 30 years. We have the most expensive Thanksgiving dinner. And by the way, gas is up 64% over last year. That's amazing.
Yeah, gas is up. And I can tell you, I got gas at Costco and it was still way over $4. What is
right?
Yes.
Right, and you think about that to a family or somebody commuting a long way. That's really going to hurt. And when gas goes up, everything goes up, from airline tickets to hotels to restaurants, and that's part of the problem of the supply chain that we're seeing. You know, with empty shelves. So yeah, you know, unfortunately, we live in an interconnected world and interconnected economies, and if you don't produce and the policies are to not produce, then you know what? You're going to have inflation and you're going to have problems. And this is going to impact the tourism industry tremendously, because if prices go up too much, then people will say, I'm really sorry, I have to feed my children. We can't go on vacations.
Yeah, it's a crazy world, I guess. And talking about Thanksgiving and generosity, there was a survey done we reported about yesterday about the most generous cities in the United States, and number one is actually Minneapolis in Minnesota, number two is Seattle, Washington, 3 Portland, Oregon, 4 New York, and 5th Baltimore, and then that's where you are, and 6th is Washington DC. So that's a good sign. People are still
yes, giving.
They're still giving. That's what.
And those are cities that have tremendous needs. So, yeah, hopefully. But you know what? We need to be thankful we're alive. When people ask me, "Are you having a good day?" I always tell them, anytime you're above the earth, it's a good day. So, you know, tomorrow is a special day in the United States. It's a day for people to stop, take a moment, think about what we do have, and to be thankful for the fact that we're alive. And that's the basis for not only, it's for everything. Without life, there's no tourism, there's no nothing. So hopefully we stay alive, and next year we can have this broadcast again and be thankful that COVID is in our rearview mirror. Let's hope so.
Of course, on Friday, it's Black Friday. So for those that wanted to get some rest tomorrow and get ready for the big shopping and get up at 4 in the morning to do that, now it's the time to do this and see what savings.
And you know, you're seeing Black Friday now around the world. When I was in Israel, they were having Black Friday this Friday.
Yes.
And in Europe, the same thing. They're having Black Friday. So I guess it's becoming
It's like Halloween, you know, in Europe, way back, no one knew what Halloween is. Now everyone does. So it is an interconnected world, as you're saying.
Absolutely. And of course, the number one tourism sport is shopping. So this is time to do it. Well, listen, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. And I'm thankful that you're in my life. So thank you for everything you do for us and for the tourism industry. And I hope many people around the world are thankful for knowing that ETN and the whole corporation really works hard at trying to make the world a better place and tourism a more successful industry.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And it's great to have you on our team. And everyone in the United States, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
News will be operating tomorrow. We'll be watching the world, but we're cutting down. Our offices are just on emergency staff tomorrow. But when something happens, be assured we let you know. Otherwise, don't expect too many articles posted tomorrow. But we will post this video so you can watch Peter and myself, and you can watch other videos we have still going. And if you ever wanted to go back and see what we did a week or a month or several months ago, you can go to our YouTube channel. Just click on the YouTube link on eTurbo News, and everything is right there. But Peter, happy Thanksgiving. I hope your turkey is tasty.
Yes, it's being defrosted right now. So wishing you best from the nation's capital, from Washington, D.C., and wishing everyone around the world a day of thankfulness, of happiness, and a day of peace.
From here, I can only say aloha.
Bye-bye. Take care. Happy